Welcome to a deep dive. Today we're diving into that stack of articles, research, and notes you shared. All about, well, something that seems simple, but isn't always. Starting and keeping conversations going.
That's right. And we've sifted through all this material specifically for you, trying to pull out the really important bits, the practical strategies, some insights you might not have thought about, and even specific phrases that can hopefully make a real difference.
Yeah, helping you feel more confident connecting with others.
Exactly. Our mission really is to unpack what these sources say about how to initiate chats, keep them flowing naturally, and just navigate those social moments a bit more easily.
Whether you're doing it in English or your own language, it applies everywhere.
Absolutely. Because let's be honest, that moment before you approach someone new or you walk into a room, maybe you don't know many people, or even just trying to get past the basic small talk, it can feel a bit intimidating.
Oh, definitely. There's often that hesitation, that sort of, what do I say, feeling.
Right. But what the sources really hammer home is how valuable this skill actually is. It's not just about filling silence.
No, it's fundamental, isn't it, for building relationships, networking, even just settling into a new job or place.
It really is. Those first steps, if you handle them well, based on some of these ideas, can genuinely build really valuable connections down the line.
And there's something quite reassuring in the material, too, I thought.
What's that?
That fundamentally, you already know how to talk. You've had loads of conversations. It's more about applying those basics intentionally.
Yeah, and focusing on communication, on actually connecting, rather than stressing about being, socially perfect.
Exactly. Especially if you're speaking a language you're learning, like English, the sources are pretty clear. Making mistakes, totally normal. It's part of learning.
People get it. The goal is just to be understood, connect, not to sound like a dictionary from day one. People usually appreciate the effort you're making.
Totally. So, okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. How do the sources suggest you actually get the ball rolling, take that first step?
Right, the opening move. Well, the most basic thing, almost deceptively simple, that comes up again and again is just a friendly start.
Like literally just.
A simple hello or hi, how are you? Good morning. But crucially, paired with a smile, open body language, facing the person. It's like a universal, I'm friendly signal.
Lowers the barrier right away. Makes sense.
It does. And then in many situations, especially new ones, the next logical step is just introducing yourself. Hi, I'm Name. Simple, shows interest, clarifies who you are.
Okay, standard stuff.
Okay.
But the sources had some slightly more strategic angles too, right?
Yeah, this one's quite clever, asking for information. Even if you might already know the answer sometimes.
Really? Why is that?
Because it creates an immediate low-stakes reason to interact. The example they gave was asking about a speaker at an event or something. The information isn't the point, the interaction is.
Ah, I see. It gives the other person an easy thing to respond to.
Exactly. Non-personal, straightforward. Another really effective method mentioned is commenting on the context, something you both share or can see.
The weather, the classic go-to.
The classic for a reason. Nice day, isn't it? Works anywhere because it's a shared experience.
True.
But it doesn't have to be the weather. The sources say, comment on the place itself. This cafe has a great vibe. Or the art, the music, something happening at the event. It's not just stating a fact.
It's an invitation.
Precisely. An invitation for them to share their thought on that shared thing.
I like that idea of using the environment as a sort of starting point. What else? Compliments came up too.
Yes, and the point wasn't just be nice, although that's good too. A genuine compliment makes someone feel noticed, appreciated. It creates a positive little spark right at the start.
And they suggested being specific works better.
Yeah, definitely. Instead of just nice shoes, maybe, oh, I really like the design on your shoes, or for work, I caught your presentation earlier, you made some really insightful points about X. It shows you actually paid attention.
Right, more meaningful. And the last opening strategy was about help.
Uh-huh. Offering or asking for help. Offering positions you as, well, helpful, but the interesting bit was asking for a small favor directions, borrowing a pen. Apparently there's this psychological thing where we tend to like people we've helped.
So asking someone for a tiny bit of help can actually make them like you in that moment. That's counterintuitive, but cool.
Isn't it? So, okay, you've made contact, you've broken the ice with one of these. How do you actually build on that, turn it into a proper conversation?
Right, the next phase. And this is where, according to the sources, a really core idea comes in. People generally like talking about themselves, their experiences, their interests.
So asking questions becomes your best friend.
Pretty much. It's the engine that keeps things moving. but it's about the right kind of questions.
Okay, like what? Start simple, maybe?
Yeah, start with easy stuff you're already familiar with, asking, how was your day? How was your weekend? Then maybe move towards asking their opinion on something relevant. What do you think the coffee here? Shows you value their view.
Makes sense. Moving from generic to slightly more specific.
Yeah.
And showing genuine interest is key, right? Like if you notice something about them.
Absolutely. If you spot something, a band t-shirt, maybe they mention where they moved from asking about, that shows real interest. Oh, you're a fan of band. Or what was it like moving from place?
The sources also talked about asking about them personally, but appropriately. Interests, hobbies, maybe work stuff, family, if it feels right in context.
Yeah, like if they mention a trip or have a photo out. It's about finding those areas they're probably happy to talk about.
And they listed some fun icebreakers too, didn't they, for going a bit deeper than the usual chat?
They did. Things like, what are you reading at the moment? Or if you could instantly learn any skill, what would it be? Or even favorite place you've ever traveled. They could open up more interesting paths.
And the goal with all this questioning is often to find that common ground, right?
Exactly. The sources really stress that. Shared interests, music, films, sports, whatever, or shared experiences just make the whole thing flow so much more easily. It feels less like effort and more like, well, a connection.
Speaking of flow and connection, there were some really useful, specific phrases and tips in the sources too, especially helpful maybe if you're navigating this in English.
Yeah, some nuances of politeness and clarity.
I like how to soften things. One phrase mentioned was, if you don't mind me saying so. You can put that before a comment that might sound a bit too direct. Shows you're being considerate.
That's useful. And what about if you want to ask something that might be a bit personal?
They suggested prefacing it with something like, excuse me if I'm being a bit nosy, but... And they explained nosy means, asking too many private questions. Using the phrase shows you're aware it might be sensitive.
Self-awareness helps. And this next one is huge for language learners. It's okay not to understand everything?
Absolutely critical. Don't just nod along. The sources say be honest. They gave great examples. Sorry, I don't know what word means. Could you explain? Or, could you speak a bit slower, please? Or even, sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you say it differently?
People are usually really patient, aren't they? And often impressed you're making the effort. That honesty is better than pretending.
Definitely. And then there were some common phrases that just make you sound a bit more natural. Like instead of just, what about you? Like using, what about yourself to return a question. Very common.
Oh, yeah. I hear that all the time. And sure thing, instead of just, okay, or no problem.
Yeah.
Feels casual, easy.
Exactly. Small things like that. Or when talking about where you're from, born and raised, is a common way to say you grew up there.
And understanding terms like heritage for culture or ancestry, or knowing that, don't get me wrong, means don't misunderstand my intention. These are useful tools.
They really are. More than just words, they help you navigate. So, okay. You've started, you're asking questions, using the right phrases. How do you keep the actual momentum going? Keep the conversation alive?
Right, sustaining it. Active listening is, like, number one, according to the sources, really paying attention, not just planning your next sentence.
Which means, what does that look like?
Nodding, making those little noises like, uh-huh, oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Keeping reasonable eye contact, showing you're tuned in.
And the best way to prove you're listening.
Asking follow-up questions. Build on what they just said. If they mention a trip, don't just say, cool. Ask, oh, where you go, or what was the highlight? It shows you heard them and want more detail.
Makes perfect sense. It encourages them to keep sharing. The sources also talked about balance, right? Like a game of catch.
Yeah, or dance.
Yeah.
Both people need to participate. It's not a lecture or an interview. It's a two-way street. Balancing, talking, and listening.
What about humor? Can that help?
Definitely, if it's light and positive. The sources suggest simple, shared observations, or maybe a gentle joke about the situation, like the weather again, can really relax the atmosphere and build rapport. Nothing too edgy, obviously.
Keep it light, and sharing a little bit about yourself can help too.
Yeah, if it's relevant. A brief personal story or anecdote that connects to what they're saying can make you seem more relatable and might encourage them to open up more too. But keep it brief. Don't hijack the conversation.
Good point. And knowing when to switch gears, change the topic.
Also key. If things slow down, don't be afraid to gently introduce something new. Maybe comment on the surroundings again, like we discussed for starting. It avoids those awkward lulls.
And showing enthusiasm seems important too.
Oh, hugely. If they're talking about something they're passionate about, respond with genuine interest. Wow, that sounds fascinating. Or, how did you get into that? It makes them feel heard and valued.
But there's a caution here too about boundaries.
Yes, absolutely. Pay attention to the signals. If someone's giving you really short answers, not making eye contact, seems hesitant, maybe they just don't want to chat much right then. And that's okay. Don't keep pushing, especially with personal stuff early on.
Read the room, basically. Which leads us nicely into what the sources say you should probably steer clear of altogether.
Right, the danger zones. The material is pretty specific here, especially for work contexts or new acquaintances.
Things like salary, benefits, definite no-nos usually.
Yeah, and politics, religion generally, too divisive for initial chats. Age can be sensitive, especially asking a woman her age in some cultures. Controversial topics in general.
And gossip. Best avoid it if you want to make a good impression.
Pretty much anything that could easily lead to negativity, disagreement, or just making someone uncomfortable. Keep it positive, keep it light, especially at the start.
And like we just touched on, be careful with those personal questions too soon. Asking about marital status right off the bat might be too much unless they bring up family first.
Context is everything. Okay, so we've navigated starting, keeping it going, avoiding pitfalls.
Yep.
But ending the conversation well is just as crucial, isn't it?
It really is. The sources stress this. Leaving gracefully leaves a good final impression.
So how do you do that? Look for a natural pause.
Exactly. A lull in the conversation, maybe after you've both laughed at something or a topic feels naturally finished, that's your cue.
And if you enjoyed it, but need to leave,
just say so politely. It was really nice chatting with you. You could even quickly summarize something you talked about to show you were listening, like, well, it was fascinating hearing about your trip to Italy.
Reinforces the connection. And a simple, have a great day, works wonders.
Totally. A classic polite exit. If you need to leave more suddenly, just be polite but direct. I'd love to keep chatting, but I actually have to run now. It was great meeting you.
Maybe give a simple reason if appropriate, like, gotta get back to my desk.
Yep. And even if the conversation maybe didn't click or felt a bit awkward,
still end politely. That same. It was nice talking with you. Have a great day. Works fine. No need to make it weird. Just move on gracefully.
the overall goal is just to leave the other person feeling respected and okay about the interaction, however long or short it was.
So wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway from this deep dive into your material?
I think it's that getting better at this stuff, starting sustaining conversations, is genuinely achievable. It's not some magic talent. Confidence really does come with practice.
And using these kinds of strategies intentionally, focusing on listening, on just connecting.
Exactly. And for anyone doing this in English, that honesty helps. Telling people you're learning, it often opens doors for practice. Even just like using voice notes on your phone to practice speaking out loud can build that fluency and confidence.
It's such a core skill, isn't it, for connecting in pretty much every part of life.
Invaluable, personal, social, professional. It touches everything.
Okay, so as you, our listener, think about putting these ideas from the sources into practice, here's a final thought for you to chew on. Think back to the last conversation you had where you felt a real connection. What was present? Maybe it was a specific question someone asked you. Maybe it was shared laughter. Maybe you felt really listened to. Can you identify elements we've talked about today?
And then looking forward. Based on everything we've unpacked, what's just one new thing? Maybe a type of question, a phrase, a listening technique that you could consciously try in your very next conversation. How might that single change potentially shift the whole interaction?